All right, so welcome back into the live stream today. It's going to be a fun one. We'll get a chance to kind of cover what happened on YouTube yesterday with the Paul Barron Network, and also we'll dive into the metaverse in a big way and really dive into what projects and a lot of news that are really starting to shift, I think, the sands inside the metaverse. We're going to dive in deep. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to TechPath. If you guys have not checked us out over on podcast streams such as Spotify and Apple, make sure and go over there. You're going to catch all of our podcasts over there, and you'll catch us under Metaverse Insider and TechPath Crypto. Those are the two podcasts that this show basically feeds into. As many of you guys are probably wondering, what happened to the Paul Barron Network channel yesterday, 8:25 a.m. on February 16th. We got a notice from YouTube that said our channel had been taken down due to a community guideline issue. We immediately reached out, filed for an appeal with YouTube to try to find out exactly what happened. As many of you know, the big move that we made was to reach out to our audience on our social media accounts, and that include Twitter, etc. And the massive, I mean, it was unbelievable, the amount of people that came to the defense of the network. So thank you very much for everything you guys have done to help to support the channel. But I think the big thing was this issue with centralized media, and this thing I've talked about before. I did a small video on this earlier. We have a secondary channel that we're probably going to continue to start fostering more content to, in case something like this happens or occurs again. But really what happened was pretty simple and pretty benign. YouTube made an error. They sent us this email that basically said, hey, listen, we're pleased to let you know that we've recently reviewed your YouTube account. After taking another look, we can confirm that it is not in violation of our terms of service, and we have lifted the suspension of your account. Once again, it's active and operational. Thank you for your patience. That was basically it from YouTube. Whether that was a bot error, a human error, we just don't know. They really don't give much on that. The point is I think that, first of all, we drew attention to it, and the only way you can draw attention to it is crypto Twitter. Crypto Twitter really kind of came up in arms and acted on our behalf, and along just responded to what we were doing out there. And a big special thanks to a couple of channels out there that, because we reached out to a few people immediately, content creators. One, of course, is a friend of the channel, Rob over at Digital Asset News, of course, popped it out, started getting this out on a retweet. He helped enact the Digital Asset News crew that has really been he's been on our channel a couple times, so they've done a lot with us, and a big thanks to Rob. Also, interestingly enough, a channel we had never communicated with until Rob said, hey, just check out with the guy over at Thinking Crypto. He's had this happen to him. And I got a chance to talk to Anthony yesterday, so a big thanks to Anthony for responding. If you guys have not subscribed to their channels, both of them, Rob, we of course know what his quality level is. He's a great YouTuber, but more importantly, he's a great investor. And Anthony is doing a great job on reporting and doing a lot of interviews as well. So check out Thinking Crypto and, of course, Digital Asset News. All right, we're going to get into it today because this is really what you guys are here to understand, and that is, how do we make money in the metaverse? What's the angle? What are the projects? What are some of the news elements that are really moving the needle in the metaverse? And of course, one of the topics that has been on the front of about everybody's lips for the last year has been JPMorgan. And of course, latest news right here, review, JPMorgan sets up shop in Decentraland, the Ethereum blockchain metaverse. And of course, what they're doing is, first thing you see is a giant tiger roaming around as if to say, welcome to the tiger's den. The tiger seemingly protecting the very Web 2 picture of Jamie Dimon and the JPMorgan CEO that has often dissed Bitcoin, but nowadays seems to be getting more and more ignored at the bank. Meaning, JPMorgan is starting to come to reality that the metaverse and what's happening in blockchain is a real thing. It's going to change the very face of our society, finance, along with many other things, especially around NFTs. But the fact that they are coming into the metaverse, I think the key here is they're out there trying to promote their project called Onyx. Now, Onyx is kind of interesting. They are a digital assets transport device. And I think this is going to be interesting because They have yet to really identify exactly what Onyx is going to be doing. I think it will be a combination of all digital assets, including and probably taking place in things like digital and metaverse real estate, NFTs, other sorts of digital assets that rely or reside in NFT architecture, including the hybrid NFTs that are being built by a lot of different chains. I think all of that, along with the traditional cryptocurrency tokens and projects that will be able to be moved around. So Onyx may actually be a bigger play in the future. We're watching this project very closely, obviously being headed up by JPMorgan, JPMorgan making these big steps. So good news. Now, one thing about JPMorgan that I thought was interesting is that they still call this a niche. And for a niche to hit 1 trillion in terms of an opportunity, to me, that's an entire sector. And if you think about the restaurant industry just here in the United States, that's a $1 trillion industry in the United States. It's about a $4.5 trillion industry globally. When I look at what Metaverse, and I've done a video on this before, and I've talked about where Metaverse could be, this literally could be anywhere between a $20 and $50 trillion industry within the decade. That's how close we are potentially moving. And if you think about what's happened just since last October, how fast some of these projects have come and how quickly they've capitalized is pretty huge. I think if you look at Mana alone, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what Mana has done in terms of their expansion, but one of the big moves they've made was, of course, this one right here with Nexo, which is expanding its territory into Decentraland's Mana is here. We've talked about Nexo. We've had Nexo on the show. Their CEO has talked a lot about what their services are. They're very similar to a Celsius. If you're not familiar with Celsius or Nexo and you're new to crypto, what I would suggest is take a look at a couple of our videos, because we've done Nexo interview CEO, Celsius interview CEO several times with Alex Mashinsky. They both present a very interesting case for both yields and also loans in crypto. And I think that is the core thing. What's happening though with Nexo is they're making a little bit of a shift here. And if you look at what you'll be able to do now, you'll be able to buy Mana on Nexo, get it in your wallets within seconds. You'll earn up some cash back on the transaction. You're going to do a convert from Mana to the Nexo exchange. You'll be able to boost Mana 3x on your Mana to buy more in another crypto. You can borrow against it, and then you can also top up with zero fees. What they're trying to do is really kind of, and I think this is something that Nexo has done that maybe other projects and programs like Nexo and Celsius are pushing to, is that Nexo is really kind of going all in on metaverse and gaming. One, they just introduced Axie Infinity a few weeks ago, which is now a great place to earn yields on Axie. If you're not if you're not staking Axie, there's some good yields on Axie over at Nexo. Same thing here with Mana. Lots more opportunity here with where Mana is going. And they did kind of just this little point right here. Enjoy Mana to the fullest. Interest rates starting from 0 when borrowing with an LTV of about under 20%. Show us a bank, lock total value, liquid total value against what your core is. So if you say have $10,000 in an asset, 20% is the LTV, so you can literally loan out 80% of that particular asset. So pretty cool. Permitted LTV of 30% on Mana, a minimum borrowing amount of just $50, no credit checks, no monthly repayments, no originations, so it's easy to do. And we've done some deep dives on these kinds of programs on crypto loans, so I would suggest definitely search Celsius or Nexo in our videos, and you'll find all that good stuff about where they're going. The other thing I want to jump to is this move right here by Adshares. Now, Adshares is a project we've talked about on the show before, and Decentraland is kind of an interesting partnership here because it does give you now, a landowner in Decentraland, the ability to monetize your land. And this has always been and has been one of the big questions of the metaverse is, what's the purpose of buying land in these spaces other than that you're taking up space? Potentially you're going to see large volumes of people starting to move in and interact within the metaverse. And that land is going to become very, very important. And one of the ways that it's going to become important is advertising is inevitable. And here's what they talk about here in this press release. Advertising presents every sphere of life. It already appears in the metaverse in a very simplified form. Sooner or later, it's going to appear on a large scale. Moreover, this virtual world is a very early stage development, and the events and experiences created are essentially going to attract not only more people, but more advertisers. So now you'll be able to, if you invested in land, looking at ways to increase your ROI, your return on investment, is paid advertising. And the way they're going to do it, and this is kind of interesting, they have a smart object that is publishing on the company's GitHub page that allows any Decentraland owner, parcel, to essentially intuitively integrate their placements with Adshares, the protocol. So imagine this, if you think about a Google ad, if you are a business owner and you have ever purchased ads in social or in Google ads, you understand that there's a whole infrastructure that's built around that. What this essentially is allowing owners to do is create their own Google ads and build in a direct system into Adshares, which is the platform that essentially is giving this out for free. So the system will automatically detect a new placement, serve the ads immediately, and then the whole process takes about 10 minutes, and you can see it in the company's new blog post. Check that one out right there. Just go over to news.bitcoin and search Adshares. You'll find this article. Profits, Adshares are transferred to their native ads token wallet automatically every hour. And then the ads on the advertising currency gives any holder a share in the whole digital advertising market. So you get the immediate feedback from that potential ad sale that you just sold on your land. So the whole process requires no media, no coding knowledge. This is big. And those who wish to track their advertising performance can create the server account in order to receive the live campaign data, revenue, clicks, CPM, CPA, etc. This is big because it really potentially could take out major advertising revenue opportunities in the metaverse. Now, there's two things that could happen here. You could see mass adoption of something like Adshares, or you could see someone like a Google, a YouTube, or others that move into this space and create a new model around blockchain delivery of ads. That will be the question mark. I think we are going to see a bit of a war being waged in the advertising space in the next 18 to 24 months. Whoever wins that early battle, I feel, is going to win the early battles in the metaverse. Adshares may be on top of something. If you look at their current chart, this is their 3-month, kind of just low down here all the way back in December, trading at about 250. Let me kind of zoom up on that for you guys a little bit, but trading about around 250 right here in December. And as you can see, right here is the pop, which is pretty significant from where they were right here at the low at $1.92. And of course, this kind of news here recently with this kind of breakthrough has really given this token a move. Now, is it something I would take a look at right now? Maybe. If you look at their all-time, let's go to their all-time, you can kind of see where they have been overall. Not necessarily, they were coming back, again, they've been around for a while. A little bit of bumps in each one of the cycles. Of course, we saw the big run up right here. And of course, the top, what is that? Right there on 11/29, which right around Thanksgiving, which is about when everybody else was popping. But they've also risen back up there where they are right now. So they're about halfway to their all-time high. I would be cautious with this one if I was looking at an investment, but I would look at this as a potential. This could just be the beginning of something very, very big. We're going to stay very tight on this one. And we're going to start really working on understanding where the sentiment data is going on this, as well as amplification. So we'll definitely report back to you guys then. And of course, just as a reminder, these are market movers. Market movers are pretty simple. We'll give you data, insights, some research, and give you even insights to our own data. But it's not investment advice. The idea is to get you guys moving in the right direction for what's next. And that's kind of understanding where you're going with your portfolio. There's another thing that's happening right here, and that's Decentraland Comedy. Comedy is coming back to the blockchain. Mic drop, first ever Metaverse Comedy Festival, streaming live into Decentraland, February 23rd through 26th, so coming up next week. Exclusive NFT with VIP access for dropping soon, retweets and others, all that good stuff. This is something that I feel is perfect for the metaverse, is entertainment. And we will see more and more of this moving in. And I think the access for the whole concept around what is going to happen with NFTs and how NFTs are going to become utility. That is going to be huge. And this is a good example is this is access utility, and this is an NFT with VIP access and more dropping soon if you look back at their tweet. I also want to jump into just Decentraland's gameplay. Just take a look at how far they've come. And you can kind of see here, there's Chain Guardians. We're showing some live gameplay footage here just quickly. There's Onyx. This is the JPMorgan piece. So when you jump in there, this is kind of the image of what you're seeing that we showed earlier. There's their roadmap to kind of taking blockchain innovation. They got the tiger rolling around. And we're jumping upstairs, taking a look upstairs. This is in the VIP lounge. Anytime Satoshi Nakamoto is going to be walking in. I know he is, right there. Maybe not. All right, so I would have put something on. Maybe that's a great place for ads to go, right there on those video screens. So out we go into Decentraland. Again, a little bit more advancements, and I think we'll see more and more of this moving in to more opportunities around great advertising plays. So this all plays into where Decentraland is going. Now imagine if you could do this right here, start going in and you're getting a chance to actually go into a comedy show and partake in it. Maybe ask questions, maybe obviously get the entertainment aspect of it and what that means. There's CoinGecko's strip of land, they haven't built on it yet. And then there's Chain Guardians, no entry yet. Wonder what they're doing behind those closed doors. So again, more and more, we'll continue to see all of that breaking into where this is going. Now, so this is great. It's nice, but what's really happening out there? You got Decentraland, you've got a combination of JPMorgan, you've got a lot of news hitting the space, but is that all of what's causing Metaverse to potentially move? Right here's the latest story. Disney hiring Mike White, who's going to lean into Metaverse. And again, this just goes back to the whole point around what is going to happen with Disney as a whole. And I do believe, and we've talked about this on the show at length, is that Disney, I do think, will have a major position in the metaverse. And in essence, their brand DNA, their assets, all of their licensure, all of that is built for this kind of environment. When you can immerse an individual, an avatar, whatever it might be, into a 3D, whether it's virtual or a 2D experience, the aspect of what this might look like in the coming years is going to be actually, I think, huge for Disney. So lots happening right there. And he's a tech executive. If you look back at the story, tech executive Mike White, fill a new role coordinating the company's metaverse, according to the memo. This is from Chapek. And of course, he's worked at Disney for 11 years, according to the LinkedIn profile, which I think is cool. And he has also been around the tech industry, which to me, that's probably one of the most important aspects of any bridge that we get in any of these platforms is companies that understand the history of Web 2.0 and technology stack that's being utilized in Web 2 and what grew that. Because a lot of those learnings from Web 2 stack development and how we built the internet for the last 25 years is going to take place in Web 3. Now, I know it will be a completely different model. Yes, we'll have new developer understanding, but a lot of Web 2 developers will start to transition. And any tech leader that understands that has already got an edge on the game. So I like Disney, and I'm watching them very closely. Another up-and-comer in the metaverse is, of course, if you guys have watched us very long, you've heard us just mention SuperFarm a couple of times. This is their newest project, which is called Impostors. It's the first AAA game in the Superverse. I'll just kind of zoom in on this. Impostors will be a social deduction multiplayer game, which can be linked to the mega hit Among Us. Among Us peaked with 300 million active users in 2020 and total revenue around 81 million last year. Among Us also took off when Twitch and YouTube streamers started to adopt. So this is a spaceship-based, Among Us was a spaceship party-based kind of teamwork, and there was a whole societal element to Among Us, and that's what I think Ellio and his team are trying to do. This is their trailer. I want to just play that real quick. I'll pop that out to full screen. You guys can kind of see it. I love this bring back into the old 1980s arcade, and of course the dance machine right there. You gotta love that. And I love it because I grew up in the 80s and I got a chance to see these kind of arcades and was part of these. So it was very interesting. But I love the art here, great art, which will be interesting to see how these guys come together with this one. So there you go. Imposters, going to be coming soon near you. All right, so we got a couple other items here, and of course one of it is Imposters Play and Earn Social Gaming Metaverse. This is going to, of course, drop in 18 days. So if you are interested in this, let's take a look. You know, we may come back and review this project. Love to get Ellio on the show to talk about it and kind of see where and what this is going. Matter of fact, we'll probably reach out to him, see if he's interested in coming on the show itself. All right, let's jump over to a couple other things, because part of this is really going to be, I think, an understanding of what projects are moving in certain directions. And one thing that we do with the Power Index is we measure on sentiment and we measure on amplification. There's two measurements that we look at based on the overall traction that projects get. Now, there's many other tools out there. Here's one right here from Coin98. They do one based on overall volume. Now, the problem that I always look at overall volume, this is the current blockchain signals from the top 10 blockchain gaming in the last 7 days. And if you look at PegAxi is number one, 138,594 interactions. The only challenge that I have with these kind of data points are that in many cases, and I want you guys to be aware of this, because this is something that you should understand. When you're out on crypto Twitter, understand that there are a certain level of bots. This happens on YouTube, it happens on Twitter, it happens on Facebook, it's all over. Bots are not real engagement, and they can immediately drive a project up. Now, I'm not saying that certain projects do this, but there are projects out there that are a little bit on the sketch side that will advance into bot traction. And listen, this kind of growth hack has been used for decades. It was used in the early era of gaining YouTube's views and subscribers. It's been done in Twitter. It's been done everywhere, all right? So it's nothing new, but you need to be aware of these kinds of transactions. When you see something trending that doesn't necessarily make sense, it's usually going to be an issue with bot-driven. Now, that's the difference between CPI and where that is going. When we look at blockchain gaming, which is a completely different run-up right here. If you go back to this one, PegAxi, Axie, Decentral, and then uninterested unicorns. Then BuySwap, Cash Cow, Benamon, which we've had before on the show, Crypto U, Yoshi, and Step Hero, versus the sentiment top 10, Sandbox Infinity, Axie Infinity, Gala, Merit Circle, Seedify, Avagachi, Decentral, Onyx, Phantasma, and D-Race. D-Race actually ranking ahead of PegAxi. So very interesting, because we did this and we also charted our growth on the CPI and how that compared to performance in the market. And in many cases, we were hitting on timing both, and we drop these every Monday, so you just go to paulbaronnetwork.com and you'll find access to the sentiment and amplification data. I want to jump over to Mana as well, and then we're going to get into some questions, a couple other things. We have another story on Snoop, but Mana real quick. Just to give you an example, here is the trading view chart on Mana, and right here we pulled this sentiment back in January. This was on the 23rd. It had held at a 73.09 and a 72.15 on AMP. Then you see that movement up, which is good. This is a good score. 74.11 growing sentiment and 72.98 growing amplification. We see another move to the top right here and then a dump. And then right here we pull sentiment again at 76.29 and a 74.88. Again, 76.29 over the 74.11, which happened back here on Feb 3rd and then here again on Feb 15th. So what this tells me with Mana is that we're seeing a good transition of upward sentiment movement. The likelihood that Mana still continues its move in a positive fashion for Metaverse, granted, you know, all of this has a little bit of bearing of how Bitcoin and other major altcoins move, but for the most part, we are seeing the Metaverse start to slip away and separate from traditional cryptocurrency. So I think Mana is going to be in a very good position. I want to get to a poll real quick, to kind of just give you guys, so do you currently own any Decentraland or Meta tokens? Yes, 53%. Good for you guys. Excellent. All right, because if you're owning a lot of these Metaverse tokens right now, listen, you're very early on this. The likelihood is that you're going to see some pretty impressive gains. Not investment advice, but for me, right now, and I just did this over the past few months, is really started to diversify my portfolio. And about 35% of my portfolio right now has moved into Metaverse and or gaming plays. The other 65% is in blue chip altcoins and traditional primary tokens. So I'm most likely going to start to shift to about a 50-50 for me. I believe Metaverse is just that strong that it needs at least 50% of my portfolio to kind of direct to those new projects, and also to the projects that will become the Bitcoins and Ethereums of the Metaverse itself. So lots happening there. Next up here, Polygon and Matic, of course, Filecoin, increased collaboration to integrate into the Metaverse and NFT spaces, just another big story. And then this right here was kind of interesting, and that is, of course, Snoop Dogg. Under Snoop Dogg's management, Death Row Records will now be an NFT label. This is pretty interesting because they're doing some stuff with Gala, and he has already, but here's a tweet right here. Snoop avatars will mint on 2/2020 right here. We're coming around the corner. Avatars will be playable in AR on JDU, and then all Jetpack and hoverboard holders will be whitelisted for the drop. So that's pretty cool. It sounds pretty incredible when you see a record label starting to move in this kind of accelerated scenario around artists, because I think this will start to attract other emerging record labels and or record labels who are a little bit on the fringe or edge, much like Death Row. And I think what Snoop has been able to do is really position as an early adopter. There's been many of them out there, and I think for the entertainment space, this is going to be huge. I still am interested in why Kanye has not made a move yet. That'll be interesting if he does. Last up here was this deal with Gala Games. Snoop's stash box. You can kind of see what's going on right here. What you're going to get is 1, 2, 3, and to the 4, Snoop Dogg and Gala are at the door. This stash box is limited to 25,000 copies. Each box opening up includes one of 17 songs, NFTs, from Snoop's new album, which is back on Death Row. I think this is cool. It shows a new structure in which entertainers are going to be, and creators are going to be able to deliver content into the Metaverse. This is a great experiment. I think it's also a great first line of testing with Gala Music and what they're going to be doing, I think, on the space. We are going to try to get Gala Games back here on the show. We've had Jason on before, but I would check out music.gala.world to go check out what's happening on Gala Music, and follow them on Twitter too, because there's some interesting stuff out there. All right, let's get over to some questions. I know you guys have a ton, and we'll just cover it up. Dakota Bickerdale, inflation scares will continue. Will it cause money to move back into crypto and safe haven from the weak dollar? All right, Dakota. So I think the scenario that you run in with inflation, and this is something, if you've watched it for a couple of decades, you understand, in the 2008 era, when we saw the financial crisis, in 1980, when we saw our highest inflation ever, there weren't the kind of asset repositories that we have now in crypto, and or these ICOs in early stage games, what's happening in the decentralized space in terms of investing, because there's so many ways to do this now. I think inflation is probably going to be less and less of an issue for the early adopters in crypto, because we don't get affected by this. And most of us that are watching this show today, and you new people that are coming in to the crypto space, we're avoiding that 7% inflation on our fiat dollar by simply moving as much of that fiat into some sort of digital asset that isn't inflating at that rate or deflating at that rate. So I do think you're going to see more and more people move into it. And I think that this is going to only push a lot of the major fiat systems, CBDCs, governmental and nation states, to move quickly either into some sort of digital asset for its people. And that's a bit of a concern, but also it's a natural evolution of money. And if you follow money, and like my friend over at Mark Moss says, fix the money, fix the world. So can happen there. Melanie, thoughts about Gala? Good investment. I like Gala. I'm a long-term holder of Gala, and I would continue to go in that direction. I just think they have a lot of innovation, but really good projects are coming out. They need to continue to perform and dropping new stuff. I like the fact that they bring a lot to market, but the key is they got to go deep on stuff. Now, we are going to try to do some deep dives on things like Mirandus and on Townstar and many of their projects. So if you haven't checked out the full title list of Gala, go check them out because it's a pretty good one to look at. Let's go over here. Jado, do you consider Solana a meta play? I have one of the best NFT setups around. I would say Solana, yeah, for sure, just because of their infrastructure and how Solana is built and being able to handle transactions. The challenge that Solana continues to face is being able to deal with the issues of congestion. And when you have big drops and big games and or projects that are releasing on Solana, they got to get that done. Blaine, just as a reminder, the Bitcoin giveaway, we did it. And we're gonna actually release it over on the Diamond Circle. For everybody that's a Diamond Circle member, you'll see an email come out and show the winners. So visit the Diamond Circle if you haven't been part of that. Sim, what's the point of holding crypto when most gains have already happened in the past cycles? Better to hold Google stock, for example. Okay, so I mean, for me, I've almost completely exited my stock positions. I do have a hold position in stock that I've held in many stocks for a long time. But for the most part, I don't buy new stocks and I don't even add to my current bags within the stock market channels that I hold, which is things like Chipotle, Tesla, what else do I have? Microsoft, a handful of stocks that I just feel like those are going to be long-term. But if I look at long-term play here, we are at the beginning of what will be literally a rocket ship ride to the next level. And you guys are in at the ground floor. Very few times in history have common people had a chance to do something like this. So you guys should do it. All right, let's go. Stella, waiting on Alice and Engine to make a move. I think we're going to see that for sure. Alice, I'm a big fan of their project. When Marvel Studios jumps into the Metaverse, game on. I think you're right there. When Marvel gets in, we'll continue to see more and more of what's going to happen there. Lots happening, I think, with the Metaverse itself in general. As you guys know, we'll try to do more updates like this around some of the latest news. Of course, if you have ideas for the show, make sure and drop them in the comments below if you're streaming after or catching this after the stream. And of course, you can always reach out to me on Twitter. That's what helped us get our channel back on so quickly by 5:10 p.m. yesterday. Because of you guys, because of the crowd that follows the show on Twitter, it got serious out there. So just hit me up, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.